All right.
Happy Father's Day, Pop.
Thank you, son. Extra special day today to have
Live.
the boy here live.
In-person podcast. The boys got after it this weekend, man. It was an electric Father's Day weekend. I made a trip home, got to see the whole family, see everybody, and capped it off with a great weekend with Pop here. Great time doing Father's Day.
36 holes of golf.
36 holes of golf. We tried to do 45 holes of golf, but Pop had a meeting, so we had to cancel that 9, had to compromise on the range. But ended up doing 36 holes of golf. Was pretty great. Pop, how'd those 36 holes go for you, man?
Not bad.
I heard history was made.
Yeah, I forget the details on that.
Details is I beat Pop by 3 strokes this weekend. I shot 72. He shot a 75. It was just kidding. We're both in the 90s, but I did beat Pop by 3 strokes this weekend on his home course.
Win. Boy played well
on his home course. Now Friday was
we
a
both could have scored
story,
a little better, so those aren't necessarily typical Dom and Pop scores. We could typically shave a few points off of those.
Definitely.
But generally, kind of slow start, got it rolling a little bit.
We're 90s golfers, faders of the golf ball. That's where we are right now. We're moving forward. We've really only been playing the game seriously for a couple of years, so it's it's different. But
might be a little more golf content coming, from the boys. Not that we're going to back off on any of the Commander stuff, but just a little extra spice.
Certainly. And we had the pleasure of running into our good friend Lou Holder at the Mustang Cup.
That was awesome. Lou,
if you're watching, we'll have you on soon. We'll be in contact with you as soon as possible.
Completely negligent on our side.
You'll see a video coming right here with some of Lou's breakdowns. We got to do a quick little pod, so here it is. What's going on, everybody? We got a little live pod action. We got Dom here, Pop, and our friend Lou. You guys know Lou from the channel and from all of his great work. Lou, take it away, man.
Yeah, we're here at the Bishop McNamara Golf Tournament. Bishop McNamara is special for all of us here, one of the premier learning institutions in the DMV, and a national blue ribbon school. They're doing great things here. But when I saw these two guys, I said, look, man, let's just have a mini cast right here, right? Mini camp just ended, mandatory mini camp. A lot of great things to see out there. It's just good that we're covering football and not foolishness. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
There's a lot of things that we are talking about that are football related. Hopefully Terry gets done. You'd think that Laramie Tunsil is going to get back in shape and he's going to be there. Marshawn Lattimore said to us that he admits he was playing hurt and he's just going to be a better Marshawn Lattimore. Yep. But some players to watch for me that we didn't get a lot to see last year. Johnny Newton. I think he's one of the reasons why the Commanders front office said, you know what, buy Jonathan Allen, because we have this kid coming up who was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago. And then Jordan McGee, he got hurt. But he's the heir apparent to Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. He's that young guy that's going to allow Frankie Louvu to maybe come off the edge and do some things. So those are 2 players right there, both on defense, that I'm looking forward to. And then that offensive line, man. I love what they did with that offensive line. Some publications say that offensive line is one of the most improved in the NFL.
It's big.
So I just think there's a lot there. So they got some time off. But again, that culture that Dan Quinn started, he had 130 high school coaches from 40 schools in the DMV out there watching practice. Just the culture out there. The way they do things is different. And I think that is what we can look forward to is just a bunch of good, solid football moves going forward.
That's great.
Amen.
Fantastic.
I love it. Music to my ears.
All right.
Doing this, Lou.
No problem. And so we got a little bit of a break, but I hope to be on with Dom.
We're going to have him on very soon.
We'll
very soon.
All right, see y'all.
All right. So getting into it, you heard from Lou there, obviously kind of perfectly tees up our theme here. We're talking our top 5 takeaways from Commanders minicamp. So that's going to be our theme for the podcast today. Pop typed up the outline for us. Very professional. Well done. So getting into it, number 1. Jaden Daniels continues to look like Jaden Daniels. And I think, personally, it's the most important thing. you could argue it's not the only thing that matters, but when you got a quarterback that produces at such an elite level, if he continues to come back and produce at an elite level, this team's always going to be in contention.
Maybe I mistyped this up. Maybe Jaden Daniels looks better.
That's what I've
Jaden
heard.
Daniels,
That's what I've heard.
which is unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, Dan Quinn has a great quote here about apparently they say his accuracy has improved, which he's already a hell of an accurate quarterback to begin with.
Yep.
And they can definitely notice a difference in his grasp of the offense, which is great. I let you read the rest of that, but yeah, you got to start off with JD5. It all starts and ends with him in terms of the success of this team, and I think year 2 is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it says he's one of the parts of this quote that I really like is that he's seeing him put in the work with different people who are new to him and to the organization. I think that speaks to the leadership. We've seen a lot of clips of him putting in work with Deebo Samuel. We've heard reports about him putting in work with Deebo Samuel. Apparently with Terry and this holdout situation, Deebo has kind of stepped up into that wide receiver 1 spot right now. Of course, we don't anticipate that that's going to have any real consequence during the regular season, but I think it's a positive because it's more reps for Deebo to get acclimated to what's going on, more reps for Jaden to get comfortable with him. And I know Deebo's only on a 1-year deal right now, but he's going to be looking to get paid next year. And if we can develop that relationship, if we can put him in a situation where he's feeling like he wants to stick around and he's getting it done, we don't necessarily have to look at this as a 1-year thing.
No doubt. And I mean, that's just another sign of just Jaden's amazing leadership. That, he's putting in that extra time with any of the new guys. He does that unprompted on his own. And I think it's building that chemistry. And yeah, look, we're going to talk wide receivers here in a minute, so maybe I'll hold that comment. But I got to say something. I think it's time to turn this hat the other way around after a good Dan Quinn quote. We got to go backwards hat now.
Got to.
It's an extra special day here.
Got to. And that's the thing that stuck out for me the most of when we spoke with Lou, is that he has just had nothing but good things to say about the culture that DQ has built, and just said it's amazing being around that. Nothing but positive things to say about DQ.
They had a bunch of high school coaches and maybe a few college coaches in there. I mean, it's just giving back to the community. And, that's the great thing to see about this team. You just see the passion. We played in the tournament on Friday where we met up with Lou. You just see it. You see it out there in the community. One of our playing partners had this great Commanders Hawaiian type shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's building and having a franchise quarterback, which is the first time we could say that in forever, is so important. It's just huge.
100%.
Understatement of the podcast, but it's huge.
100%. I mean, I got Commanders head covers and Commanders gear all over my my golf equipment, and we played with a buddy of mine on Saturday who's a Commanders fan as well. And he's saying, man, the Commanders gear in Cali, people must have no idea what this is. I said, not anymore.
That's right.
I said, not anymore. They did a couple years ago.
They're going to find out on October 5th or something like that.
Well, during the I don't think there's any place in the country that watches football that doesn't know who the Washington Commanders are after the run we went on last year.
Absolutely.
But definitely previously. But team's back on the map. And speaking of back on the map, I think our number 2 takeaway here, I think the Hogs are back on the map.
Hogs 2.0?
I think we've
had a couple of attempts at Hogs 2.0 over the years.
I think this is the real deal. I mean, we'll have to see how it shapes out, but I think this O-line's going to be special with Tunsil on the left. It has now been reported that Brandon Coleman is playing left guard. He's moved there, and I think when you look at his build and his ability at guard, and especially the fact that he was playing through a shoulder injury most of last year. He's playing hurt almost all of last year. Remember, he missed almost the whole offseason last year with that shoulder injury. He was questionable for week 1.
True.
Started in a rotation. When he was healthy, he was shutting down Trey Hendrickson and Myles Garrett, both of them. Neither of them recorded a stat against him. I think Hendrickson had 1 pressure. But now putting that talent on the inside at left guard, I think is going to be as much of an impact as any of the other guys. And especially speaking of new guys, Josh Connerly Jr. on the right side, who's Laramie Tunsil said he's impressed with him. And he's been taking on a little bit more of a leadership role. And when Laramie Tunsil was asked, not just specifically about his involvement, but he just said, anybody, what have you been most impressed with? Or has there been a player that's kind of jumped out to you? He offered readily available Josh Connerly Jr. He said he thinks he's going to be a dog.
Yeah, I liked, what we heard from Laramie. I didn't like the fact that he wasn't necessarily in good shape coming into this mini camp.
I'm not worried about that, though.
But in general, like, a guy skips OTAs, so you think, okay, well, he's got his own regimen. He's working out. He's doing his own thing. Don't come in out of shape, Laramie. I'm sure he'll get it together by training camp. There's still plenty of time for an O-lineman to get in shape, but I don't like hearing that. But I did like his interview in the sense that he talked about how important it was for him to build a relationship with Jaden Daniels. And yes, he did talk about Josh Connerly in particular and the talent that he sees with Josh. And I like the fact that he's embracing, at least through his words, leadership role with this offensive line. And I think the other thing with Brandon Coleman is, Nick Allegretti was, I like Nick Allegretti. He's a fellow Paisan. We like him. I think he gives it everything he's got.
A lot of fight.
He's a backup. In an ideal situation, he's a backup. He gave up 33 pressures last year, which was the worst on the team. I think, potentially. Now, the thing is, we said this offensive line could be special. The talent is without a doubt there. There's a lot of unproven pieces to it, right? Brandon Coleman as guard is unproven. Potential's there. Josh Connerly, great player in college, but at the NFL level is unproven. Sam Cosmi is injured, but I think and Andrew Wiley is going to be a great fill-in. And talk about a great backup. You go from a average to maybe slightly below average starter at right tackle to having that guy as a swing, because he's going to be your sixth starter. Guys are going to get nicked up. There's going to be chances that Brandon might have to bump out to left tackle again. Hopefully not, but here and there. Hopefully there's no season enders in there. But, you brought up Brandon Coleman playing hurt. Offensive linemen play banged up the whole season, right? But potentially, if you just look at the pure talent of this offensive line, and the nice thing is the youth of it. You think of Cosmi, Coleman, Biadasz, Connerly. There's some young guys there that could be a core.
Yeah, I don't think you got a guy older than 27 in that group. So I think it's pretty exciting between that crew, and I really think, like I said, man, I think this is the real deal in terms of the way this offensive line has been rebuilt. And I think when Cosmi comes back, I expect this to be a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. Moving forward.
Would love that.
Speaking of rooms that have potential to be
nice
top half of the league groups, you never would have thought this, cornerback. And this, for me, I want to speak to Adam Peters a bit, right? Because the fan base we got so dialed in, so singularly focused on edge rusher, like Madden franchise mode was like biggest position of need, edge rusher. There's all this fan base could talk about. We also needed help on the offensive line and at cornerback, and they were just as much, if not more, position of needs than edge rusher, in my opinion. And we addressed both of those, adding Josh Connerly Jr., who we talked about in the last segment, and Trey Amos, who's been like the minicamp darling. He seems to have taken over. He seems to be a great fit, just a fantastic pick. Now, you don't have control over how the board falls to you, right? But lesser GMs might, at that point, still pull the trigger on an edge rusher and kind of force it because that's what they needed. But you have Amos on the board there. You take it. And Marshawn Lattimore comes back. He sounds healthy. He sounds humble. He looks healthy. He's playing healthy. He sounds humble. Everything seems to be where it needs to be. I heard him talk about he's talked about Trey Amos looking good. He's also talked about his performance last year. He didn't shy away from it. He said he's not proud of what he put on tape last year. But
I loved his interview. It's words. I love his interview and how he looked. You saw that extra person, how he talked about the injury impacting him, what he's been doing to get better. That's a guy who missed OTAs. We kind of flipped it, right? We said we weren't worried about Tunsil. We were worried about, the fact that Lattimore missed OTAs, and it kind of ended up flipping, right?
I'm
You
not
know, he
worried about
came
either,
in-
for the record.
He came in. Well, that was kind of the word on the street.
Sure.
That was a word on the street. But he came in looking good. And, I think we didn't even bring up Mikey yet. I didn't give you the chance. I mean, Mikey Sandstrom is just a football player. Get my
Stud.
Scott McLuhan going there. He is a football player.
There it is.
He is you are better off having Mike Sandstrom on the field by far than not having him on the field. He's a baller.
Yeah, he's a hooper, man.
So this position group could turn out to be one of our best.
Yeah.
And to think about the O-line and the cornerback group, two weaknesses on the team, if not last year, at least going into it. Definitely cornerback was a major weakness last year. People just kind of base this year's team on last year's roster. That's where you're going wrong. Yeah,
100%.
you could say that maybe we lucked into some wins. This is not the same roster that went into last season.
100%. And you're looking at, even Quan Martin is a guy that was playing on two bum shoulders last year. Obviously not participating as much, he's still recovering from that operation.
Get healthy.
Getting healthy. But I think he'll be, with them there. And then Will Harris as well coming in. I think who plays that second safety position, who's going to play strong safety, is definitely
Will Harris.
That's definitely going to be kind of a storyline to watch. Is it Will Harris? Does Tyler Owens kind of impressed throughout training camp? Dominique Campton, it seems like they're working him more as a linebacker.
They want to get Jeremy Reeves more stops, just extended.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Maybe more snaps.
No,
but I'm not sure I see that being a regular. It's been said. I heard Joe Witt Jr. say it. I don't see him being our starting strong safety.
No, I agree.
Maybe. Love Revo. Would love to see that.
Yeah, I agree.
But we'll see how this develops, man. I think it's going to be interesting, that safety position. But yeah, just looking at Quan, Marshawn, what we project Amos to be, and what we've seen out of Samerstill, that's a strong group.
Yeah.
At defensive back. And Dan Quinn's defenses have kind of been famous for their back seven. And then when you consider that you've got Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu as your two linebackers there, and then you've got, as Lou mentioned in the clip earlier, you've got Jordan McGee, who's been showing and is basically going to be the heir apparent to Bobby Wagner when it becomes his time to step down, and we'll probably see a lot more of Jordan McGee, and I think he's going to be trending towards being one of the better players on this defense, hopefully. It's a very optimistic pod today. But here's maybe bring us back down to earth a little bit here, the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
Some volatility here. That's our number four. Number four takeaway is that the wide receiver spots are up for grabs. So Noah Brown was carted off with an undisclosed injury. We don't know exactly what's going on. I hope he's okay. Great. Doesn't sound great. If it is related to some of the internal stuff he was dealing with that ended his season last season, I just hope he's good. His well-being is in good shape. His greater health is okay, because that was scary stuff he was dealing with last year, and you don't like to see that pop back up if that's what's happening. But we don't know. It's all speculative. So hopefully Noah Brown's okay.
And I think he's a valuable piece.
Yeah, but from what I've heard, from what's been said, it doesn't sound like that's going to be a guy that you're counting on in September right now, just based on that injury. So that leaves us
not true.
With Terry McLaurin, who is still currently in the holdout phase. So that makes you a little uncomfortable. Real quick, out of 10, where are you on the Terry panic meter?
I'm not panicked at all. I really am not. There was actually a report that came out today I was reading, and I'm sorry, I don't know who the reporter was, but I think it was in NBC Sports or MSNBC or something like that. And they said it's going to get done. It's going to get done really soon. If we make it to training camp and we're still in this situation, I'll start the meter. To me, the meter's turned off.
I love
right now.
Yeah.
If we make it to training camp, I don't love that he's not signed. It's done, though. We're through all the off-season program until training camp. So at this point, it really doesn't matter, and I don't think it hurts us very much. And you brought up the great point is sometimes when a veteran like that sits out, it gives other players the opportunity to step up and get more work. Debo's new to the system. Some of these young guys we're getting ready to talk about right now at the receiver course. I don't think Terry missing, and he didn't miss all of it, by the way. He did get some work in. with Jaden Daniels and the crew earlier in OTAs. So not panicked at all. I think they get the deal done. We get the training camp and it's still not signed. Then I might start get a little bit upset. But one thing I want to remind people is sometimes people tend to side with the player. And especially in this case, because Terry is such a great guy. But it's a two-way street in these contract talks. And he's got an agent who's a hard negotiator. So it's, the Commanders have to be smart about this as well. I'm sure it's going to work out. Reports are it's coming very soon.
Yeah. A lot of mouths to feed, right? A lot of mouths to feed. So, but that means, frankly, it's ironic. You say a lot of mouths to feed in regards to McLaurin's contract, but we might need a couple more mouths in terms of wide receivers because you got Noah Brown going down. And then that means, so Noah Brown, in my opinion, had the wide receiver 3 position.
I think so.
Shored up. And maybe, he's not playing in the slot, but I think your ideal situation was Terry and Noah Brown opposite one another,
right?
And Deebo Samuel playing in the slot most of the time. That's obviously off the table now.
We don't know for sure. It might be.
More than likely off the table now based on the reporting. And then you're looking at the other side of it, which is Jalen Lane also dealing with a little bit of soft tish during OTAs. That hopefully is not that serious. I'm sure that won't impact us. But you'd love to get Jalen Lane involved. I have heard Luke McCaffrey has been stepping up. And you'd love to get him more involved as well. Apparently he's getting more reps. He changed his number. He's wearing 11 now. So I would love to see him get some more reps. But it's going to be interesting to, who becomes that, like last year it was, Terry, and then Ertz was probably next, and then De'Ami Brown, and then kind of whoever else. It was Noah Brown for a while. He was on and off the field. Whoever else was kind of around. Who's going to become that? I think it's pretty clear it's going to be Terry, Deebo, Zach Ertz, who, by the way, all reports indicate looks 22 again.
Love Zach.
The ageless wonder. Big
Love
fan
Zach.
of Zach Ertz. I think it's going to be Terry, Deebo, Zach Ertz, but who is going to fill up those other, there's probably another 700-800 yards on the table for somebody.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard great reports about Chris Moore. I'll be honest, I don't know the young man at all, but he's a name that's jumped up. You still got Michael Gallup in there, who's been banged up too.
He's not going to make the roster.
Ja'Cory Brooks is another guy that we've heard. That's a guy with size that they signed as an undrafted free agent that they really like. So we'll see. Maybe it's one of those other younger guys that fills in that last 6 spot. The Luke McCaffrey thing, I'm just having a hard time with Luke.
Gotta see it.
I just after last season, and I get it, it was his rookie year, but I didn't get the vibe that this is an NFL wide receiver.
Well, you had one of the all-time great white chocolate wide receivers join our staff this offseason, Wes Welker. You think that brings any sauce to Luke?
I hope
very
so.
similar type of player.
I hope so. You want to love Luke McCaffrey. I have more faith in a Jalen Lane being
certainly
stepping up and being that next guy in. I think there's no question that Luke works his rear end off.
Yeah, it's in the last name.
And works hard. And maybe, I liked what he did at kick returner. I think he can contribute there. But I just didn't see, I hate to say it, it's super harsh, and I hope I'm wrong. I didn't see an NFL receiver when I saw him play last year.
We'll see. We'll see. Every stats dweeb who decided Cliff Kingsbury was a bad coach before the season even started, they were spending all year talking about.
It's harsh.
They were spending all year talking about how Luke McCaffrey was wide open. So we'll see.
Maybe
we'll see. He was high up in separation at some point last year.
Maybe. I hope I'm wrong. You can bring it up if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will.
I would love for that to be the case.
Rooting for him for sure.
So moving on here, yeah, I mean, I think guys like KJ Osborne, Michael Gallup, I don't think are making the roster. I think Osborne might. Michael Gallup, I think, is just this year's Martavius Bryant. I don't really see much from the wide receiver room unless Noah Brown ends up on the PUP list, and then maybe a couple more of these guys squeeze in.
Well, so if Noah Brown goes down, which says likely, someone else has got to step up.
Yeah, you're hoping it's Lane.
But I'm even thinking one of these other. I mean, we need a receiver with some size. Yeah.
I think it's overrated. You have Zach Ertz. And you also have, speaking of number 5, our takeaways here is the young players who have impressed. You've got Ben Sinnott. There's some size for you. Looks good. I still think Sinnott is going to be more in that hybrid role. I think he's closer to John Bates than he is Zach Ertz. I think he's going to be in that hybrid fullback tight end role personally.
I think they're hoping to get a lot more out of him as a receiver.
Well, what they spent on him, you'd hope you will get more out of him than that. But so far, Jordan McGee, we spoke about a little bit earlier, seems to be getting a bunch of reps, looking really good. I mean, he was running with the ones this time last year before he got hurt. So we'll see if he can kind of live up to that expectation that we've had for him. He's been a camp darling for a couple years now. Ben Sinnott also looks really good. Had a great catch on a deep ball during 7-on-7s and generally seems to be better with his game. And then this is the one I'm most excited about, and this is the one that I think is going to cause a lot of fans, myself included, and you're going to be included in this too. We're going to have a little apology to our boy Adam Peters on not addressing the pass rusher situation, because I think it's pretty clear he wants to rush from the inside. And I think from everything that I've heard, Johnny Newton, after a full off season, after his rookie year, is ready to have an absolute breakout season this year. After last year having to fight through all the foot injuries and kind of get back up to speed, I think it's time for him to live up to that like top 20 prospect in the draft potential that he has.
Well, yeah, I'd go a step further and say if you look at Deron Payne, John Allen, who are both really good football players, Johnny Newton might be the most talented of the three. When it's all said and done. You heard Lou
say it, right? You heard Lou say he's the reason we were okay moving on from John Allen.
Right. So, definitely, if he could keep, I think the only question with him is health. I think he's a baller. He's a hard worker. Yeah, in terms of defensive line, look, you can't address, and I don't want to drag this too much longer so we can get on to our picks. But, you can't address every position group. I still think that they could overachieve what we're expecting from them. I'm not so much concerned about the interior. We've also got Javon Kinlaw in there. But, the edge, let's face it. I mean, maybe someone steps up at edge, but, and I think that they can make it work with pass rushing, but, avoiding getting to a deep defensive line, that's obviously, I would say, just something to be determined. I look at a Ben Sinnott as compared to Luke McCaffrey, right? Those are two, what you would say, disappointing rookies from last year, right? I mean, it's fair to say that. I never believe, despite my Luke McCaffrey statements, I never believe in writing off a rookie. I'm not writing off Luke either. I think Ben was especially an incomplete because Zach Ertz was just so good that I just think that, there were people saying, well, we need to get Ben more snaps. Why are we playing Zach? We need to think about the future. Zach Ertz was balling, and Jaden Daniels loved him.
We were 12-5 and in the NFC Championship game. You're not thinking about the future at that point.
You got to play the game that's in front of you and put your best players on the field. And I think we're going to have a similar problem this year. I think Zach's going to get a lot of the snaps.
Good problem to have.
But, hopefully we'll see Ben Sinnott flash a little bit more. And, I hope that's the case because, like you said, they did spend a lot. And it's great to hear that he's looking good. And, yeah, I think getting an extra linebacker contribution out of Jordan McGee, and maybe if he could slide into that, I think Bobby Wagner is going to be Bobby Wagner unless he has a drop-off. He's going to play every snap pretty much. But I think Jordan can slide into that Luvu slot and have Luvu be a pass rusher. That could be dangerous. And that could do a lot to upgrade your defensive line. I know he's a little bit more of a Bobby Wagner fill-in than a Luvu, but I think they're going to mix and match those three guys.
Yeah, you heard Joe Witt Jr. talk about it in his presser a couple weeks ago where he said he's going to have to find more packages to get Jordan McGee on the field. I think that will help with the run defense as well, having a linebacker that you can kind of trust.
Year two in the defense. Year two for a lot of these guys is a big help.
I also think personally, I've heard really good stuff about Dietrich Wise as well on the defensive line. He's a veteran.
He's a pro.
But I've heard that he might give us a little more than maybe we anticipated at the time of the signing.
The interior of that line is just fine. I mean, that's where you look at the defensive line and go, maybe it's not as bad as we think because the interior is better than average to potentially really darn good.
Yeah.
from what we're hearing, right?
Well, and I maintain it again. This time last year, you didn't even know what Fowler Jr.'s first name was, and you're saying, oh, this is a guy that might get some situational snaps. Turns out to have 10.5 sacks. So they
You
will.
think that was more coaching than player?
Yes, 100%. 100%. You look at the arc of his career, I think they'll be able to manufacture those pressures again this year. Moving on. You want to do some around the league talk now?
Let's do around the league. This is our continuation of our playoff team seeding picks, and now we're going to do first round of the playoffs, wild cards. Sorry to take away your DJing duty there.
You crushed it. You moved right into it. So getting in our wild card picks here. My matchups are.
So
our
why don't you
matchups are
run
gonna be a
down
little
your
bit different.
seeding, right? Just to recap what we did the last time around.
So we're doing the AFC here. I had Buffalo the 1, Kansas City the 2, the Ravens 3, Texans 4, Broncos 5, Bengals 6, Chargers 7, which would make my matchups Chiefs, Chargers. Buffalo have a bye, obviously. So Chiefs 2, Chargers 7. Obviously, Chiefs will be at home for this one. I'm going to take Kansas City to win that. Then you'd have the Ravens and the Bengals. Ravens will be at home for this one. You take the Ravens to win that as well. And then you have the Texans and the Broncos. I'm going to take the Broncos to win this one on the road against Houston. So I would have, I guess,
You got
moving out of the
Chiefs,
wild card.
Ravens, and Broncos moving through.
Yeah, which would
I
mean
like it.
you'd have Buffalo, Chiefs, Ravens, and Broncos in that divisional round.
Yeah, so we're doing AFC this week. We'll do NFC first round next week. And then I think we'll just knock out a combination of the rounds going forward from there.
For sure.
We'll have more games to kind of deal with, right? So for me in the AFC, so that's a teaser for next week. We do the NFC first round next week. That could get spicy. For me, I had Ravens as the number 1 seed, Chiefs as number 2, Bills as number 3, Texans as number 4. I had the Bengals at 5, Chargers at 6, and Broncos at 7. So same teams as Dominic, differences in the seedings, right? So in my case, Ravens get the bye. They win week 1 because they don't even have to get off the couch and play. And I think, like I said, my logic was I think the Ravens need that home field advantage more than any other team in this playoffs to secure their path. And they've got a great home field. We were there last year.
Underrated
Really good
in terms
home
of
field.
hard places to play
Right.
in the league. Underrated.
Right. So Broncos at Chiefs, I think the Chiefs win that. I think the Broncos are going to be scrappy in this game. And it might be tighter than people think, but I think the Chiefs pull away there and get that win. I also like the Bills over the Chargers. I think Chargers having to go play up in Buffalo, is going to be a tough get for them in the weather and everything. Buffalo at home is just so tough. Now we got Bengals Texans. I think the Bengals get that one. So similar to you, I think the 5 seed knocks out the 4 seed. Now Texans could have a bounce back year. It could be a pretty good team, but their offensive line is a shambles. And, they lost Larry Tunsil on top of that. So I like the Bengals to go through. So I'll go with Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals making it through the next round.
I like it.
Yeah, there it is.
So the only difference is I got Denver moving forward and you have Cincinnati.
Yeah, so I guess if we look ahead a little bit, because we got a little time to do that. So I guess it would be, let's see if I can figure this out. I guess Ravens would play Broncos. Chiefs would play Ravens would play No. And you're okay. Let me try this again. Buffalo would play the Broncos in your situation because Broncos would be the lowest seed.
Correct.
And then Chiefs would play the Ravens and at home.
At Arrowhead.
Oof.
Yeah.
All right. And in my case, Ravens would play the Bengals in round 2, which I absolutely love.
That's a banger
round
matchup.
2 matchup.
That'd be
As I was
fun.
making my picks, part of me was like Bengals Ravens in round 2 of the playoffs is fire. That will be a battle. And then of course you got Chiefs Bills in Kansas City, another phenomenal match. I hope this happens. I hope this happens because that's an incredible second round of the playoffs.
That's a great second round. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Looking down at these seeds, I'm thinking around. I'm like, I don't like the Bengals making the playoffs this year, but man, I just think the AFC is weak. I think the AFC is weaker than the NFC. I think the AFC is top heavy, But then you could even say the Eagles were better than all of these teams last year by a wide margin. So I think personally, I think the AFC is weaker than the NFC going into next year. It projects to be significantly weaker than the NFC going into next year.
I like it.
Personally.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Because you look at the NFC and you go, how do I only pick 7 of these teams to make the playoffs? You got Seattle missing the playoffs. You got Green Bay maybe missing the playoffs. You got Minnesota, Detroit.
I think what's happened is like last year or year before, we were saying how much better the AFC was. I think NFC is closing that gap with teams like Detroit and, of course, Commanders. And I think there's some other really good teams in there like Green Bay and others.
Philly.
Of course, I'm taking Philly for granted. They're the Super Bowl champs, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I mean it's a good point. I don't know. It's a good argument for another pod. We'll be picking first round of the NFC playoffs and recapping our seeding for them next week. I look forward to that. We're kind of dragging this thing out a little bit, keep it a little exciting through the off season, give you something to look forward to week over week. But I'll say something real here. It's Father's Day, right? And usually during Father's Day, the son honors the dad. But I want to give props to my son. You know, he took time out of a really busy schedule. This guy is family first. I don't know if that's unique or not unique in this young generation, but he took time to spend with his mom, with me this week. But I just really appreciate him taking time. It was very special. It was the first Father's Day that we've had to get together, live. I don't know, since college probably.
Yeah,
maybe there
before.
even sometimes he stayed up in Boston during college. So I couldn't be more proud of this guy. And he's my Father's Day present, along with a lot of other great family members. Are blessed by a new grandchild who I want to honor as well.
Yep.
Here. So this situation where it's totally about me giving appreciation. Plus he's making some sauce. I don't know if you mentioned that earlier, but he's making the sauce.
It's going to be real tough.
He's cooking for me for he's cooked for me before. One of the few times, but he's a great cook, all added to just being a great person. And I'm thankful every day to have you as my son.
Appreciate that, Pop. It's apple don't fall too far from the tree. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's going to be tough, man. You got dethroned on the golf game, and now you're going to get dethroned on the sauce game and the meatball game. It's tough.
And
man.
I'm not dethroned yet. This is a series. We can wipe the slate clean for 2025. You got one. Congratulations. Well deserved. You outplayed me. Better team won.
Very true. Anyways, let's wrap this thing up. I could have said it better myself. Let's wrap this thing up without
all
further
those
ado.
nice words I say about you, and that's how you treat me.
You know, gotta keep you humble.
I raise you like that.
Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you all for another great week, everybody, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.
Love me, baby, oh.